If you're a right winger and you think Israel is bad and evil and doing nasty things, I'm here to tell you that you're shooting your own philosophy and belief systems in the foot. As a matter of fact, I believe the state of Israel is actually based and awesome. Now, if you're wondering who I am, because this is how the right wing works, okay? If you say anything positive about Israel, you must be like a Jew in hiding. You must be Jewish, bro. You must be fighting for your own ethnic group, bro, your own religion, bro. That's actually not true. So I've gone ahead and I've posted my handsome face, including me in a Santa Claus outfit. I think I look pretty good at that. Look at those beautiful hazel eyes, by the way. So I've posted my ancestry results. You can clearly see my name, Christopher, and you can see my ancestry. I'm 99.8% European, and I guess I'm 0.2% North African. That they add that as DEI. But if you look through all these locations, do you see Ashkenazi anywhere? No, no. I'm 100%, basically 100% European. I don't have any Jewish ancestry, and I still think they're freaking based, as I'm going to argue very shortly. So what do I personally believe, okay? Now, I want to give you guys some context. I want to give you guys some background. So as I develop my argument, you'll see why I come to the conclusions that I do. I personally believe all of these things. First and foremost, I believe the basis of all morality is survival. We have developed morals and ethics that ultimately result in our survival as a people and as a species. If you were on an island by yourself and you were a vegan and you were hungry, would you kill a rabbit? Imagine if you saw a rabbit or a monkey hopping around. You're stuck on this island. You're starving to death. And you're like, I can't eat meat because it's against my values. I have a suspicion you'd probably eat the monkey. At the end of the day, human morality always boils down to survival. People will always choose their own survival over all of their moral principles when it comes down to the line. Therefore, the basis of all morality is survival. If something pushes you to survive, if a belief system ensures your survival, it is moral and it is good. Next, I believe blood first, always. I know this is a radical concept in modern DEI clown, low IQ, doofus America, but I prefer my own blood. I love my daughter. I love my son. I would always place my son and my daughter over some random kids down the block. That kind of makes sense, right? Wouldn't a reasonable person that isn't a far leftist psychopath, maniac, insane clown, wouldn't they agree with that statement? I think they would, okay? But then when you start to think about it, it's like, okay, well, I always place the needs of my own blood relatives over others. It somehow stops outside their immediate family. They don't think, oh, well, I actually have, for example, English blood. Am I related to English people? Absolutely I am. I have English blood. There are people in England right now that are blood relatives of mine. Do I have Southern Italian relatives living in Southern Italy? Yes. But according to modern DEI clown philosophy, you can't place them first. No, you can't place them first because we're all human, bro. We should treat everybody equally, though, even if they're blood related, but somehow I'll still place my daughter and my son first, right? I mean, that makes sense. That makes sense, right? So if you think about what your blood is you. It is you. Your son and daughter are half of you. Your parents are half of you. Your siblings, half of you. Your grandchildren, a quarter of you. And if you extend that thought process out from your immediate family, from your family unit, you kind of start to see what a nation actually is. A nation is the blood. It is your blood relatives. It is people that share your DNA. And you always prioritize your closest blood relatives first, logical, and then you extend that outwards. And you can kind of see how the nation, the actual definition of a nation, is people that are bound by blood, common blood, common language, common culture, common tradition, common religion. But in America, that's inverted. Basically, you could have somebody from across the world fly into your country, live there for a day, and, oh, well, we're the same, bro. We both have a piece of paper that says we're citizens. Yeah, bro, totally. My next belief, capitalism is satanic, money over blood. I'm not a huge fan of capitalism. I'm really not. I'm not anti-capitalist. I believe people should be able to pursue their own interests. But we've gone so far in America that capitalism is just do whatever you want, scam whoever you want, steal whatever you want, and that's okay. Because as long as you make money and a profit, that's all that matters in America. I disagree with that. I think people should be able to pursue their own interests without scamming people. I think a person should have the freedom to start a business. Maybe they start a grocery store. Maybe they open a bakery. Maybe they become a lawyer and they provide goods or services to people. I think that's perfectly fine. But when you're literally scamming and thieving because you worship the dollar, because you place money over blood, you're willing to scam your own people, your own nation, in order to enrich yourself, I think that's satanic. And if you look at what's happening in America, I don't know if you guys have not seen this, but there's lots of scamming going on in this country. Everything's a freaking grift. Everything's a fraud. And people worship the frauds because the frauds have lots of money, and we worship money. That is our God. My money, my check, my wealth, my Lambo. Those are American values. That is sadistic and sick. But hey, you guys are brainwashed? What can I do? Nothing. I also believe communism is demonic. It places class over blood. You really think that, let's say you have a cousin that got super rich. Or let's say your sister gets super rich. She starts some makeup brand and she's on TikTok. I'm like, God, I'm like, girl. And she suddenly gets super rich. Oh, she's in a different class than you now. That means she's bad because she's in a different class. She's one of the capital class. She has a bunch of stonks. She bought a bunch of stonks with all the money from her makeup brand. Oh, I have to hate her now, even though she shares my blood, because she's in a different class. But hey, there's a diverse person in the inner city who makes about the same that I do, and we share nothing in common. But hey, we're in the same class, so we all love each other, right? What kind of nonsense is that? What kind of low IQ clownish nonsense is that? Welcome to America. Next, all actions are justified when the survival of your blood is threatened by outside groups. Oh, so some bunch of people move in and they want to kick you out of the neighborhood, or they want to harm your children. Is it justified to react to that? If somebody's trying to wipe you out, trying to wipe out your bloodline, trying to exterminate you, is it justified to do whatever you have to do to stop that? I personally believe, yes, it is justified. I wonder how this applies to Israel. All groups compete in a brutal struggle for survival. This is 100% factual. Now, we grew up in a world that was mostly peaceful. Yeah, there's wars and, millions died in Iraq and Afghanistan, whatever. There's been wars. There's people dying in Ukraine right now. Okay, there's people dying in Iran right now. There's some war going on. But overall, we haven't had these titanic, massive wars that have killed millions and millions and millions of people. Thinking World War I, World War II, Vietnam, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you actually read a history book, I know this is hard for you Amerisharts, but if you actually read a history book and you look at human history, it is nonstop war, conflict, and annihilation. Non-stop. It doesn't matter if they were Europeans, Asians, Africans, Arabs, doesn't matter. Non-stop bloodshed. That is the true history of humanity. And it still applies to this day. But we pretend it doesn't because we live in a mostly peaceful world because America is the sole superpower. But I guarantee you, human nature has not changed. People will still fight. They'll still exterminate each other. They'll still seize each other's lands. And is it an aberration if one country is doing this in the Middle East? Does that make them like super evil? No, it doesn't. That's the story of humanity. It's always been that way, and it always will be. And finally, leftist propaganda is a tool to turn the blood against their nation. Have you always wondered, like, every time let's say a white person becomes a leftist, they start to like hate their own people? Have you noticed that? Why is that? Could leftist propaganda be subversion? Could it steal you away from loving your own people? That can't possibly be the case now, can it? I don't know. So this is the context of what I personally believe in. So I guess you can kind of see how I'm building a case about why I actually admire Israel, even though I'm not Jewish. I don't have one drop of Jewish blood, but I actually admire their state. So why does everybody hate modern Israel? Why is everybody so anti-Israel now? Well, number one, it's popular. Okay, if it's popular, people are going to support it. Basically, it's a feminine attribute. If you follow the crowd, you fit in, and everybody smiles at you, and you fit in, bro. It's awesome. It's like high school. So that's one of the main reasons that people don't like modern Israel. But there's also other reasons. So they've occupied the West Bank. They have expansionist border policies, human rights abuses, meddling in foreign government elections to promote self-interest, based. And that includes in the United States. But guess what? I think that's actually based and smart of them to do. I don't look down on them for doing that. I look down on us for falling for it. Anti-colonialism, aka anti-Europeanism. You ever hear that Israel's a colonial state? They're colonizers. Do you want to know what people mean by that? It's an anti-European trope. It's an anti-European sentiment. If you're an American and you don't like Israel because they're colonizers, what does that say about you? Because technically, you're a colonizer. So you're agreeing with the seeds of your own destruction. You're agreeing with a political point that will eventually be applied to you because you indeed are a colonizer, just like the Israelis are. It's an anti-European philosophy. And of course, the hypocrisy of the you-know-what, the G word. And that's true. That's right. They were targeted, the Israelis, the Jews were targeted by the Germans in the 30s and 40s. And the Israelis I actually believe they're actually doing that in parts of, the West Bank, against the Palestinians, et cetera, et cetera. I don't deny that. I think it's true. So that's the main reasons why people hate Israel. I'm sure there's more reasons, but that's the main ones right there. Okay, so now let's think about this. So yes, Israel can be pretty psychotic, okay? Yeah, they can do some pretty horrific things. Why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? Well, if you actually read a history book, you could see that the Jews used to have a state in their lands that they now occupy, and they were essentially destroyed. They were occupied by various empires, culminating in the Roman Empire. The Romans occupied them, conquered them, and then they revolted. And what happened when they revolted against the Romans? Well, in 70 CE, Jerusalem was sacked by the Romans. They put down the rebellion. The Second Temple, their holy site, was destroyed. Between 600,000 and 1.1 million Jewish people died because they were conquered by an outside force. That was 1/4 of their population, and 97,000 were sold into slavery. Man, I wonder why they're so psychotic about self-defense. I don't know. Further revolts. There were actually 3 revolts. They're called the Jewish-Roman Wars. From 115 to 117 CE, the Diaspora Revolt. These were multiple revolts across the Middle East and the Levant. They revolted against the Romans. What was the result? The results were crushed. Mass retribution against the Jewish population. And remember, you would support the Jews back in the day, right? If you're a leftist. Bro, the Romans are colonizers, bro. Then they had the Bar Kokhba. I like that, Kokhba. The Bar Kokhba Revolt. 132 to 136 CE. The third revolt against the Romans. Once again, the Romans won. And there was a mass depopulation of Judea. And the Jews did not have a state, an actual state after this. Basically, for the next 2 millennia, they were scattered around the world. We all know the story. Kicked out of all these countries, persecuted, blah, 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 blah. Okay? Man, I wonder why they so fanatically fight for their homeland and will do whatever they have to do to preserve it. Why would they possibly do that? I mean, This wasn't a big deal. Well, who cares? 1 million dead, 1/4 of them wiped out, sold into slavery. Man, why would they do that? So the second temple was destroyed. The Jews were eventually scattered around the world. They were persecuted in every country that they lived in. Maybe a little bit of trauma there, okay? And of course, we all know about what happened in the 30s and 40s, okay? We all know about that, but we're fast forwarding a lot here. So, next. So remember, they had their lands. We all read the Bible, Moses crossing the sea, the Israelis, the Jews, they find their own homeland. Eventually they get scattered by the Romans. And for the next 2 millennia, they wander the earth, persecuted in every country. And then we get the recreation of the state of Israel. You got the Zionist movement starting in basically 1897, the Balfour Declaration, where the British government said supporting a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. They wanted to support and eventually establish a Jewish state. We had the Holocaust. We had the Resolution of 181 in 1947, where the UN resolution, they proposed to partition land into independent Jewish and Arab states. And then on May 14th, 1948, the Jewish state, Israel, came into existence. Okay, so they finally had a state after losing it 2,000 years ago. Man, okay. So what happened when they established their state? Well, their neighbors were not happy about that, and they had 3 major wars pretty close to each other where these external powers literally tried to do what the Romans did to them 2,000 years ago, okay? These were not wars. These were not traditional wars where they were, we'll just defeat you, and then we'll, tax you or something. No, these were wars of extermination. They wanted to erase the Israeli state, and Israel won every single one of the wars, okay? All right. So here's kind of my thought process here. So Israel is existentially threatened. There are outsiders, foreigners, that want to annihilate them. They want to kill everybody. They want to expel them from the land. They want to return them to a stateless people. Okay. They're occupying land that they've had a millennia-old claim to. Yes, they do have a claim to the land. Of course they do. If you don't believe that, you're a clown. Millennia. And they have millennia of trauma and persecution. And you're shocked they're a fascist, ethnocentric, militaristic, expansionist state. Here's how the world works. If your people experience millennia of trauma, yeah, it kind of drives you crazy, okay? And it kind of makes sense why they're acting the way they are. Oh, but it's not right, bro. Okay, don't resist. Yeah, just stop resisting, Israelis. Just let a bunch of foreigners just conquer you again. Yeah, why? I mean, that's the right thing to do, bro. What a bunch of leftist subversion garbage. So, why they're based AF? They put their blood first. This is the rational philosophy to live your life. You always put your own people first. If you are existentially threatened, you are justified in doing whatever you have to do to survive. And there's nothing wrong with that. Don't let a subversive leftist piece of garbage tell you otherwise. They manipulate foreign governments and use censorship to assure their survival. Absolutely based. I admire that. Yeah, if I was threatened, yeah, I'd do whatever I had to do to survive. What's wrong with that? Oh, you're on an island, the monkey, you're vegan. Oh, but I'm a vegan, bro. I can't eat the monkey, bro. Okay, go ahead and die then. They crush their blood enemies. They don't play. Okay, if you're a threat to them, they will clap your cheeks. That is based. Unlike America, where we have a bunch of population, we just let them do whatever they want, and then we fluff them. That's America. Oh, yeah, open borders, bro. Oh, inner city crime. No-go zones. Doesn't matter. Just, they're awesome, bro. They refuse to bend the knee to leftist Bolshevik propaganda. Most of the propaganda aimed at them is leftist. There's some right-wing criticisms, okay? But they refuse to bend the knee. The leftists will always try to sabotage you. They will always try to convince you to turn against your own people. Oh, we're all human, bro. But yet I always side with the outsider. But we're all human. We're all human. Never trust a leftist. They want you to stab your own people in the back. I don't know how this could be any more obvious. They're absolute chads. They fight to defend their own people. I wish we were like that in America and Europe. I wish we actually, for once, placed our own blood first. But we can't do that because I guess we're just special. We can't fight for our own existence. We can't fight for our own self interest. That's bad in America. But every other group besides America and Israel, I guess they can't, and Europeans in general, they can't do that. No, how dare you defend your own blood? How dare you fight for your own state? If only America could be like this. And of course, the postscript. Now, how do I feel about Israel? I'm ambivalent, okay? I mean, yeah, they're partially European. I mean, I'm more sympathetic to them than, I don't know, some random Arab. But I'm mostly ambivalent about them. But I can objectively look at them and say, wow, they're actually pretty freaking based if you think about that. And if you're a right winger, wouldn't you kind of want this in the United States? Wouldn't you want Europeans to act like this and actually defend their land and put their people first? Is that really wrong or evil? I guess it is if you're a European. Much of anti-Israel hate is just anti-colonialism. Yeah, you ever hear them called colonizers? I wonder why. I wonder if that's anti-European. No, it's not. No, it's not. The threat of extinction leads to the rise of fascism and ethnocentrism. Yes, if your group is attacked, people come together to defend themselves. That's just a natural thing to do. Why do you think they're doing what they're doing? Why do you think they're coming together and fighting like psychos and doing all sorts of horrific things? Because they feel like they're existentially threatened. If somebody comes up and threatens to kill you, oh yeah, you'll do whatever you gotta do to survive. I promise that. And that's exactly what they're doing. They clearly face extinction. Is it obvious? Is it obvious? I think it's obvious. Israel is morally justified in fighting for the survival of their own blood. Of course they are. You always are justified in defending your own people, your family, your relatives, your blood relations. It is completely moral and justified to do that. Don't let a leftist, subversive, Bolshevik, communist piece of garbage ever convince you otherwise. And of course, Israel's actions are commonplace in the story of humanity. Stop being a liberal rainbow. And with that, I think Israel is extremely based. Do I support them? I'm ambivalent. It's whatever. I'm not an Israeli. But I can see a state that I admire. I can see a state that actually stands up for its own people. So go ahead and hate them, okay? You're basically, if you're a right winger, if you want to take your countries back, but then you criticize their actions, you're shooting yourself in the foot, clown.